collaboration with the Cyprus Mail. This is the Cyprus News Digest with Rosie Haralambous.
Let me start by apologising for my lengthy absence over the holiday period and to wish you a very happy new year. Coming up on this week's programme, the unequal media coverage of the elections so far falls foul of the law.
The treatment by media of the candidates is unequal, and not only unequal, but also they are in breach of the laws, because the laws stipulate that candidates should have equal treatment.
And a promise from one candidate to take a pay cut to help people in need.
Both the President and the members of the Council of Ministers, the ministers will take a 10% cut in their salary in order to assist people who are in need and the government cannot provide for.
I know we keep discussing the elections on the programme, but they are very, very important, coming up, of course, in February. We're joined on this week's programme by political analyst Christoforos Christoforou, because a recent poll suggested that only 8% of respondents considered the Cyprus problem the most important issue facing the country. For a country that has been divided for nigh on 50 years, that seems extraordinary to me. So, Christoforos, what do you make of the fact that the national problem is no longer, it seems, the most important thing for people voting in these upcoming elections?
We come there to a critical issue when dealing with opinion polls. Opinion polls put generic questions or general questions, and the answers are not explicitly analyzed. So the issue is, what do people mean? What is the most important problem facing the country? First, we have to say when. And when, at the moment, the most important or the most, for me, it means the most pressing problem. And the second question is the Cyprus problem a factor, an issue that will define the vote? This is how we should see answers and how to interpret answers to opinion polls. I mean that the critical issue is always analysis and interpretation.
And indeed, how the question itself is framed.
Yes, sure. And also, when we have a number of issues, the most pressing takes precedence over the other. And no doubt, at present, the most pressing issue is the economy, which comes from what happened in the past 3 years with the coronavirus and what happens now with the energy prices because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So this is the pressing issues. It's not the most important for the country in general. I mean, long term or medium term, etc.
OK, it's the high cost of living, isn't it? People are finding it hard to make ends meet. But it plays rather nicely into the hands of the three front runners in the presidential elections, doesn't it? Because they're all almost singing from the same page. They've all been involved, one way or another, over the last many years in the unsuccessful attempts to solve the Cyprus problem. So it doesn't really pay for them to be associated with it at the moment, does it?
Yeah, this is another aspect of the issue. I mean that how the Cyprus problem comes as a subject on the table when the three main candidates, let's say the three that are shown by opinion polls as top of the 10 or more candidates. So what you said is quite right, that all three have been involved in the issue. issue. The two of them were part of the governing team, and Averos Neophytou has been supporting whatever the government and the president were promoting. So, yes, what have they to say? And we saw in one of the first debates in early September that the only thing that came up is, okay, first it was a blame on behalf of one of the candidates to another, that he didn't do the best for promoting or for attempting to have a solution. And also we have seen a number of proposals that would lead the Cyprus problem out of the stalemate. But these proposals were just, I don't know, lip service to the need to say something. They didn't add something important or practical as to go take the Cyprus problem out of the stalemate.
Right, well, they've not really been very specific about any policy statements or manifestos, have they, in any area that they're campaigning on? It's all general slogans, doesn't tell us anything.
Okay, you touch here a long-term problem with electoral campaigns in Cyprus, and even on issues that are burning issues for the people, etc., we rarely or never have seen a really substantial discussion, an approach that, let's put together our wisdom, our knowledge in order to find some solutions to the benefit of the people. So this is another aspect. And going back to previous elections, both last year's election of parliamentary election and 2019 European election, I noticed, starting from the 2019 European Parliament election, that there was only one of the parties that participated again that had a specific proposal related to the participation of Cyprus in the European Union. All the others had some couple of pages, 1 or 2 pages of bullet points. That most of these bullet points, the issues that we are tackling, had nothing to do with Europe. So it's a kind of empty vessels.
Yeah, and they're making a lot of noise, particularly the fact that it's only the 3 top candidates, according to the polls, who are given substantial airtime on the media. So it's not really surprising, is it, that they're ahead in the polls, because they're the only ones that are getting much coverage, either in the press or on TV and radio.
Okay, you touch here the issue of how influential the media can be and how can they shape opinion, public opinion, etc. Here there is the view or the conclusion by political analysis, by political science, that the media do reinforce existing views and positions that are changing. The fact that the 3 are ahead is mostly due to the fact that they have been in the political arena for years. They have the support of political parties, and even though political parties, the 4 up to now considered the 4 major parties, even though they have lost influence, they continue to command a big part of the electorate. This is the issue. This is the factor that gives them precedence over the others. But on the other hand, you are right that the treatment by media of the candidates is unequal. And not only unequal, but also they are in breach of the laws, because the laws stipulate that candidates should have equal treatment, and in particular the law of the public service, CNBC.
But nothing's done about it, is it? And that brings us, I suppose, to the other question that came up in that October poll, and that was corruption.
Yeah. So Corruption is considered as an important issue by the electorate, but they don't see any of the candidates or the parties able to tackle this issue and to really fight corruption. And this is normal, given that it has been documented by Al Jazeera investigation, report and investigation, and also by other instances, the investigation commissions, etc., that all four parties, big parties, have been implicated in corruption. So this is reflected in opinion polls. I recall an opinion poll very specific last year before the parliamentary elections, when the responses showed that a very small part of the electorate answered that this or that party can tackle corruption. And even the supporters of specific parties were in a very, very small minority of the view that their party could fight corruption. So this is indicative of the kind of demystification of politics and demystification of the position that someone can fight corruption.
You've been analysing politics here for years, Christoforos. How is it that people don't see that we need a new broom? We need to sweep out the stables, because they all say they're bothered about corruption. Quite a few do say that the Cyprus problem is a problem. Have we got Cyprob burnout? I mean, I can't understand why we keep voting the same parties and the same people in over and over again.
Okay, this goes deeper into questions that how political elites are created, and how can a group of people be formed and develop in such a way as to change things. These parties have been dominating the political stage for decades. They have also arranged things, laws and procedures and other things, in ways that they serve their own interests. And despite differences between them, when it comes to sharing the spoils of power, they find ways to do it. I recall an older thing, which 2015, for example, there was an amendment of the electoral law where both Agel and Disi voted for raising the threshold to enter the parliament, and the other amendment was that while the state grant to parties stipulated that 22% of the grant is divided equally between the parties, they put this to 15. They lower this sum. And why? And how could Agel, which has for decades fought for proportional system in elections, voted the raising of the threshold and also take a bigger part from the state grant than was in the previous law. So this is the issue. When they come to share the spoils of power, they find ways. But when it's about finding solutions to problems that will serve the public and every citizen, they have big problems.
Do you think that, if we go back again to the Cyprus problem, one of the issues is that an awful lot of voters have not, if you like, put two and two together, because it seems to me that we are probably heading towards partition? Have people realised that that would mean what is now the Green Line would become a hard border with a province of Turkey? And have people also got any idea at all as to how a solution and the reunification of the island could impact the economy, the income that would be generated and the investment? Has been documented several years ago as being substantial, and that would probably solve a lot of the economic problems that are bothering people at the moment, but they don't seem to make a connection.
Yes, this is the problem that political science says that when it comes to ideological divisions, there is a big problem in finding common ground and agree. And the Cyprus problem has, for long years or decades, projected at this level, the level of ideology and enmity against the Turks and the Turkish Cypriots. And this has been helped and is helped by the propaganda that has managed to inculcate in the minds of people that maybe it's better that they stay where they are and we stay where we are. So we saw this in recent polls where a big part of people, of the respondents, if I am right, it was beyond 20%, were not afraid of the situation staying as it is or even a two-state solution. So many things come to what kind of information people receive and what kind of communication policies do governments and political parties promote. And we have seen since 2017 the collapse of negotiations in Montana, a sustained effort to demonize the other side and also in a certain way also come out that okay, the situation it might be better than seek a solution. On the other hand, we should not forget that it's almost 50 years since 1974, the division of the country, and the youngest person today that has some memories of the other side is 55, because we have memories when we are up to 4 or 5 years old. So younger people do not have the experience of the occupied part of the island. And slogans like I do not forget, Exekno and others, they have over the years remained pure slogans, and they were coupled with a narrative that was not promoting the idea of one day living together with the others, the Turkish Cypriots, and one day sharing the goods that this country offers together. This is a big problem. It's information, it's education, it's living experiences who are fading away because maybe more than half of the refugees have already died. And so we need a lot of effort in order to change things, and it seems that this effort has maybe lost the game.
Well, and it's also, we must never forget, down to media literacy to some degree, to try and think past the headlines and look at the agendas behind them, because driven either by government or by media moguls, they do undoubtedly shape people's perceptions. I don't know whether we'll talk again before the elections, Christoforos, or whether there'll be any news at the end of January before people go to the polls, but thank you very much indeed for sharing your knowledge with us today.
Thank you.
Keep up to date with events in Cyprus and around the world with the Cyprus News Digest.
And staying with those presidential elections, yesterday was the day that all the candidates who really did intend to stand for election had to put their names down. They have to be backed, I think, by 100 people. But the man in the know is one of the presidential candidates that we've been following here on the Cyprus News Digest. We always like to buck the mainstream media trend. He is Achilleas Dimitriades, and very much the front-runner of the independent candidates who do not have the backing of one of our established political parties. Achilleas, you've signed up. It's all go, what, in a month from now?
Yes, on the 5th of February will be election day, and you're absolutely right. Yesterday was the submission of the candidacy. One person proposes and 100 support, and we submitted our forms, and we are now officially officially a candidate for the presidential election. As you rightly said, we're an independent candidate, are not supported by any party that is in government. We are supported by Famagusta for Cyprus, which is a small party that has tried before to enter the House of Representatives. But with that small party, we are running as independent, essentially on 3 points. The first one is honest state. The second one is Cyprus in the year 2035. And the third one is it pays to solve the Cyprus problem. So let me start with honest state. That has to do with corruption, with the fact that there are endemic problems in the operation of government which have to be dealt with in order to clean up the system. And this cleaning up can be established by breaking up the competency of the Attorney General, so that on the one hand, the Attorney General is the Director of Public Prosecutions, and on the other, he's no longer the lawyer of the state, because there is an obvious conflict of interest. On the other hand, there is a need to fix the way the President appoints independent officers. So where the Constitution makes provision, I believe we should have non-binding public hearings before the House of Representatives so that people could air their views about the candidates and the possibility of being appointed. And there where the posts are created by law, we need to amend the law so that a filter is created and a committee endorses the candidacy of people, and then the President makes a choice from them. This essentially has to do with honest state. Oh, and another issue which is very dear to me is the abolition of all these privileges that a number of government employees are enjoying. For example, at the end of this government, there will be a 1.3 million bonus to the President and the ministers who will be departing. Why on earth do they need a bonus when they are paid lavishly? And not only are they paid lavishly, they are enjoying various privileges. For example, having a limousine. All these things have to be abolished. We need to move into cars that are friendly to the environment, preferably electric cars. We will have a commission that will consider these privileges, and if they are unreasonable, they will be abolished. And as a first step, both the President and the members of the Council of Ministers, the ministers, will take a 10% cut in their salary in order to assist people who are in need and the government cannot provide for.
Well, it does make us wonder as ordinary citizens when so much is lavished on people who, as you said, are already paid pretty lavishly, what could be done for the other citizens of Cyprus if that money was available for school or hospital or other infrastructure projects.
Oh, absolutely right. I mean, the amount of money that is being spent on matters that I do not believe are necessary for the functioning of the state is mind-boggling. There's about 11.5 million that the parties receive as a subsidy from the state. Why should the Cypriot taxpayer subsidize political parties, especially if you are an independent? And not only me, but also other people. So there's a lot under the heading honest state. But let's come to the vision for 2035, because that's really what interests me most in terms of where are we going for the future. And for me, the future is green, and this green future deals with one Cyprus. And when I say one, I mean one ecological unit. We need to view Cyprus as an island in the Mediterranean where the environment is not affected by the green line. The fish, the animals, the birds deal with Cyprus as one unit. That's how we should be dealing with it, pending, of course, the solution of the Cyprus problem, because if we are polluting on our side, that pollution then spills over on the other side, and vice versa. And when we have 800,000 euros per day as a surcharge for burning oil in order to produce electricity, that shows how much of a waste we are incurring in terms of polluting the environment and producing energy which is not clean. Why can't we have home production? Why can't we have solar panels on every roof, on every cover of a parking place? These are simple solutions that could have been put in effect with a subsidy of the 800,000 euros per day that is being put aside, rather than the government using the money as another source of the government budget. So these are matters that have to be dealt with. Of course, a new model of development has to be established. We need to look at education. We need to look at the economy. There's hundreds of things that need to be fixed, but we really need to start somewhere. And I invite people to visit achilleas.eu, even though it's in Greek, I'm afraid, and have a look at the position. And last but not least is the Cyprus problem, which is an existentialist question, since if we do not have a country, then I don't really see how we're going to be dealing with other matters. And the Cyprus problem position I have taken is that I am in favor of a bizonal, bicommunal federation, as the UN Secretary General has said. I am in favor of the 6-point plan that Secretary General Guterres in Switzerland in 2017 had placed before the parties. I understand that most of the candidates now approve that 6-point plan as the basis of a discussion for a solution.
Well, sorry, let me interrupt you there, Achilleas. They say they approve of it. All three of the front-running candidates have been involved for years in unsuccessful attempts to solve the Cyprus problem.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I call them the systemic applicants. They are part of the problem, and therefore they cannot be part of the solution. And let me explain. The first one is the negotiator, the second one is the foreign minister, and the third one is the leader of the ruling party. Let's start with the negotiator. I mean, he's been part of the team of the president. He's the number 2 in the team. And if, as he says, he did not agree with the president when he came up with the brainstorming of 2 states, why didn't he pack and leave? I mean, people resign and move on to something else. I cannot understand someone at such a high level not to agree with the president on fundamental matters, and yet staying on for 5 years as a negotiator when in fact there were no negotiations. Let's now turn to the leader of the ruling party. I mean, he passed all the laws from the House of Representatives. He's partly to blame for the corruption that we have. Talk about the black van, talk about the reduction of VAT, talk about the golden passports and the scam that was created by that. All those have to pass through Parliament, and he has to be held to account. And last but not least is the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, who both on the Cyprus problem and on corruption I have issues with. In relation to the Cyprus problem, let me remind you of his position of the opening up of Varosha in June 2019, where he said, oh, this is just a political firework, when in fact Varosha is in the process of being opened up, and the government until today still has no plan to react. And then as far as corruption is concerned, he was a member of the Council of Ministers that issued all the golden passports, of which, according to the report that was established by the Chief Justice, 52% did not comply with the provisions of the law. So what can I say other than they are part of the problem and we are part of the solution?
Well, we certainly hope so. I have to be honest about that, Achilleas. A pleasure talking to you, and very good luck in the upcoming elections.
Thank you very much, and all the best.
Achilleas Dimitriadis, one of the independent candidates for those upcoming presidential elections. Well, that about wraps up this edition of the Cyprus News Digest. Many thanks for your company. Hope you'll join me next week. Till we meet again, take care and God bless. Bye-bye now.